The call came less than an hour after they fired me. A calm voice, careful. The kind that thinks tone can replace permission. There was a document waiting in my inbox already, apparently. Something quick, something routine. Just a signature to wrap things up. I opened the file. The date jumped out first. Yesterday. Before the meeting, before the cameras. Before I was walked out like a warning sign. I asked about the date, not accusing, just pointing. The silence on the line stretched. Not technical, not confused, strategic. That pause told me more than the words that followed. Something about efficiency, about keeping records clean. I didn't argue, didn't explain. Didn't ask what would happen if I refused. I ended the call while he was still talking. My hands were shaking. I hate admitting that part. I scrubbed them with sanitizer again, even though they already smelled like it. Sharp and fake. Like hospitals and airports and places where people pretend everything is under control. My name is Nadia, 42 years old. I sat down and opened my laptop. Not to help them, not to fix anything, just to see what was actually still mine. The company thought the meeting was the ending, the firing, the labels, the public part. They didn't realize how much they'd skipped, how many steps they assumed someone else would finish for them. I didn't feel brave, I didn't feel clever. Mostly I felt tired, and angry in that quiet way that doesn't make speeches. This story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Fear. It is inspired by real power dynamics, real workplace pressure, and the kind of moments people usually keep to themselves. Any resemblance to real companies or individuals is not intentional. I stared at my screen longer than I should have. The files loaded slowly, one after another. My access was still there. All of it. They had taken my badge. They had taken my title. They had not taken everything. When the next call came, I let it ring while I kept reading, already knowing this was not over, and that whatever came next would be louder than the meeting they thought had ended me. What kind of firing needs witnesses? The CEO started with the smile he used when he thought he was in control, the one that always came before bad news for someone else. He talked about growth, momentum, how proud he was to step into the role officially. A promotion he said he had earned. People clapped, not all at once. It came in waves, awkward, like they were waiting for instructions. Then the smile shifted, not gone, just thinner. His eyes landed on me. This is also a moment for a lineman. No one moved. Chairs stopped creaking. Even the air felt like it froze. Nadia has been an obstacle. That word dropped heavy, not performance, not results. Obstacle, like I was furniture in the wrong place. He kept going. Fast now, comfortable, talking about resistance, about slowing things down, about how leadership required removing friction. Phones came up. I saw at least 2 screens pointed straight at me. Someone didn't even bother pretending they weren't recording. HR sat perfectly still, pen hovering, no folder, no envelope, nothing on the table in front of her except a glass of water she didn't touch. This takes effect immediately. No reason, no process, no pause for questions. My heart started hammering, loud enough that I was sure people could hear it. I felt heat crawl up my neck. The part of me that wanted to argue woke up fast. The part that wanted to cry woke up faster. I stood up before either of them won. The chair legs scraped, too loud. That sound carried. He looked satisfied, like he was waiting for a reaction he could use. The word came out before I planned it. Thank you. It didn't sound strong. It didn't sound weak either. It just landed wrong. I could see it on his face. That wasn't the word he had prepared for. I turned and walked out. No escort, no hand on my arm. My badge still opened the door, behind me. A camera clicked again. How fast does a lie become office truth? The hallway didn't explode the way I expected. It went quiet, too quiet. People found reasons to look busy. Screens got adjusted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence and never came back. Someone stepped out of an office, saw me, and turned right back in. Another nodded like we'd just passed each other at the grocery store. Normal. Too normal. My phone buzzed. An email from HR. No greeting, no signature. One line confirming my termination effective immediately. No reason, no attachment. Just a sentence that looked like it had been copied and pasted from somewhere else. I stared at it longer than I should have, waiting for something else to load. Nothing did. Brian caught up with me near the elevators. Finance. We'd worked together for years without ever actually being friends. He didn't stand too close. Didn't look straight at me. They didn't finish it, he muttered. Eyes on the floor tiles. I asked what he meant. A breath in, a breath out. Legal hasn't touched it. No off-boarding checklist. No transfer. He stopped there, like the rest of the sentence might get him in trouble. The elevator doors opened. We stepped in, just us. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, steady and annoying. My jaw tightened with it. They're already saying things, he added, blocking progress. Old school, difficult. I watched the numbers light up. 1, 2, 3. Did anyone ask for paperwork? The words came out flat. He shook his head. They don't need it yet. They think you'll clean it up. The doors opened again. Lobby. He hesitated, then leaned closer. You didn't sign anything, I know. That was when his face changed, just a flicker. Relief mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. I stepped out. He stayed behind. As the doors slid shut, I saw him pull out his phone, probably already rewriting what had happened. I walked toward the exit with my badge still clipped to my jacket. The lie settling in behind me, unfinished, unstable, waiting for someone to hold it together. Why would they need my consent if I had no power left? The email arrived mid-afternoon, flagged as urgent but written like nothing was wrong. Subject line, clarification. That word again. The one people use when they are trying to fix something without admitting it broke. No greeting. Just a paragraph that sounded too careful, too smooth. The kind of language that had been reviewed by more than one lawyer and still pretended to be casual. Attached was a document. I didn't open it at first. I read the body twice, instead. It said my authority had been properly transferred prior to my termination. It thanked me for my cooperation. It framed everything as already settled. That never happened. I opened the attachment anyway. The laptop fan kicked up, whining like it always did when I asked it to work too hard. The document was thorough, every responsibility listed, every handoff confirmed. Dates aligned neatly, too neatly. My name was typed at the bottom. They weren't asking me to agree, they were asking me to pretend. Another email followed before I could finish scrolling, shorter this time. A name I recognized from legal. Someone who had never contacted me directly before. Friendly tone. A reminder that this was just a formality, that everyone wanted to move forward from what. I forwarded the entire chain to my personal account. Habit? I didn't think about it. My finger just did it. Then I replied. 3 words. Nothing else. I do not consent. I stared at the sent message. Half expected it to bounce back. It didn't. The reply came fast. Too fast. Asking if I had questions. Offering to walk me through it. Stressing timelines. Stressing exposure. Stressing how this affected people who had nothing to do with my situation. I didn't answer. The fan kept whining. The screen glowed brighter than it needed to. Somewhere on the other side of town, someone was realizing I wasn't playing my part anymore. I closed the laptop without shutting it down. For the first time since the meeting, no one was telling me what to do next. What if firing me didn't actually remove me? I opened my personal records the way I always did, without thinking. Muscle memory. Years of saving things twice. Once where they told me to. Once where I knew I could still reach them. The files loaded slow. My chair creaked when I leaned back. The same tired sound it always made, like it had an opinion about what I was about to find. My name showed up immediately, not buried, not grayed out, still active, still attached to everything that mattered. Final signatory, primary authority, no handoff recorded, no replacement listed. Just my name, sitting there like nothing had happened that morning. I scrolled. The list kept going, reports, filings, approvals that didn't move without someone at the end of the line. Me. A calendar reminder flashed red in the corner of the screen. Quarterly compliance package. Due Tuesday. They had fired me on Monday. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Not relief, not satisfaction, just recognition. This was the part they skipped. This was the part they assumed someone else would handle. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message preview from legal, then another. I didn't open either. Instead, I clicked deeper. Checked the audit trail, timestamps. No activity since the meeting, nothing reassigned, nothing transferred. Everything frozen exactly where I'd left it. For a second, the old instinct kicked in. The one that said fix it, flag it, call someone before it turns into a problem. That instinct had kept the company clean for years. I felt it tug at me now. I closed the file. The chair creaked again when I leaned forward this time. Louder, complaining. I didn't call anyone. I didn't warn anyone. I didn't send a follow-up explaining what they'd missed. I sat there and let the silence do its work. Whatever they thought had ended in that boardroom hadn't ended at all. It had just moved somewhere quieter, somewhere they weren't looking. When the next email came in, marked urgent, I watched it sit unread while the red deadline stayed exactly where it was, counting down without caring who still had a job and who didn't. Why would the SEC skip them and call me? The number didn't have a name attached, just a Washington area code. I let it ring once, then twice. I answered on the third, already knowing this wasn't going to be a wrong number. She introduced herself without ceremony. Clear voice, even pace. The kind of tone that doesn't waste words because it doesn't need to. She wanted to confirm something, nothing dramatic, just a clarification, according to their records. I was still listed as the primary compliance authority for my former employer. She said the company had informed her that my employment had been terminated earlier that day. She wanted to know if there had been a formal transfer of my signing authority. I took a sip of coffee. It had gone cold, bitter in a way I deserved. There hasn't been a transfer, I told her. She didn't react. No surprise, no judgment. Just a pause long enough to mark the answer. She asked if anyone had contacted me to complete the transition. Yes. Another pause. Slightly longer. I added one sentence. Not defensive, not explanatory, just factual. I declined to sign anything retroactive. The line went quiet, not dropped, just held. I could hear breathing on the other end, steady and controlled, like she was lining up the next step in her head. She thanked me for my time, said they would follow up. That was it. No warning, no accusation, no request for help. When the call ended, my phone felt heavier in my hand, like it had absorbed something it wasn't going to give back. I sat there for a minute without moving. The coffee stayed on my tongue, sour and thin. The kind of taste that doesn't go away even after you swallow. Another call came through almost immediately. Internal number this time. I didn't answer. Then another and another. I placed the phone face down on the table, let it buzz itself quiet. Whatever line they thought I was protecting had already been crossed. Not by me. By the space they left behind when they decided process was optional and silence would do the rest. Somewhere, calendars were being checked. Filings were being pulled. A deadline was getting closer without anyone in that building realizing how close it already was. What does power sound like when it's running out? My phone lit up with his name this time. No unknown number, no buffer. Straight to the point. I didn't answer right away. Let it ring. Let him hear the space he'd created. When I picked up, the voice wasn't the one from the boardroom. Softer, measured. Like he was stepping onto thin ice and knew it. He talked fast. Too fast. About misunderstandings. About timing. About how things had moved quicker than intended. He said my name a lot, like repetition might rebuild something. Then the offers started sliding in. Consulting, temporary, generous. He didn't say the number out loud, but I heard it anyway in the way he framed it. More than I'd made before. Enough to make it sound reasonable to clean things up quietly. He kept circling back to the same line. Everyone is affected. Teams, clients, people who had nothing to do with it. I let him talk until he ran out of breath. I told him I wasn't interested. There was a pause. Short this time. Sharp. He tried again. Different angle. Said the board would appreciate it. Said regulators respond better when transitions look cooperative. Said this wasn't about fault. That was when I cut in. I said I wasn't negotiating. Not terms. Not timelines. Not responsibility. The silence that followed wasn't strategic. It was startled. He asked what I wanted. I told him I wanted to not be involved. That landed wrong. I could hear it. He had prepared for anger, for leverage, for demands. He hadn't prepared for absence. His voice tightened. He reminded me that my name was still on things, that this could follow me, that cooperation mattered. The phone started vibrating harder in my hand. Or maybe that was me. I told him I hadn't put my name anywhere it didn't belong. I told him I wasn't fixing decisions I never approved. I told him this call didn't change anything. He started to say something else. I didn't wait to hear it. I ended the call and set the phone on the table. It kept vibrating for a few seconds after, notifications stacking, missed calls lining up. I didn't pick it back up for the first time. The weight wasn't on me to hold everything together. If things were going to fall apart, they were going to do it without my hands underneath them. What happens when consequences finally show up? I didn't hear it from the company first. I heard it from Brian, a text that didn't bother with punctuation. "They're here." That was all it said. The next call came a minute later. He sounded like he was standing in a hallway he wasn't supposed to be in. He told me the review had started, not a courtesy check, not a conversation. A full pull, files requested, access locked, calendars frozen. They missed it, he said, lowering his voice even though no one was with him. The filing, it went past the deadline. I didn't respond. There wasn't anything to add. They're tracing approvals now, he continued, looking at who signed, when decisions shifted, who overrode what. In the background, a printer kicked on and kept going. The air must have been thick with toner. I could almost smell it through the phone. That dry chemical bite that meant someone was making copies they hadn't planned on making. He told me the pattern was already clear. Deals that had gone through clean when I was in the room. Shortcuts taken after I wasn't. Risk flags ignored. Documentation patched together later. The board meeting happened without warning. Emergency session, closed doors. No recording this time. By the end of the day, the CEO was suspended. Not a leave, not a temporary step back. His authority pulled. Access revoked. Security escort. The kind of exit no one claps for. Brian didn't sound relieved. He sounded stunned. Like the story everyone had been repeating had finally run into paperwork that didn't care. "They asked about you," he added quietly. I told him I wasn't surprised. "They want to know if you'll help straighten things out." I pictured stacks of paper spread across tables, names highlighted, timelines rewritten in red, people realizing that silence doesn't count as approval. "I'm not available," I said. He didn't argue, he just exhaled, slow and heavy. After the call, I sat there and let the quiet settle. No rush of victory, no urge to explain myself. Just the steady understanding that once the files start moving, they don't stop for anyone's narrative. Whatever they needed to learn, they were learning it without me in the room. What does an apology mean when it comes with conditions? The message came from the board, not legal this time. Different tone. Careful, polite, like they were knocking on a door they didn't own. They wanted a call, just to talk. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. The line filled with voices I recognized, and a few I didn't. No one wasted time. They thanked me for my professionalism. They acknowledged how things had been handled. Poorly, regrettably. Words that sound useful until you try to lean on them. Then the offer landed, a public apology. Not vague, specific. My name mentioned. My role clarified. Full reinstatement. Same title. Expanded authority. A commitment to process integrity moving forward. They framed it as a reset. One of them added that this would help stabilize the situation. Another mentioned morale. Someone else talked about restoring confidence with partners. My inbox began to fill while they were still talking. Calendar holds, draft statements, a contract marked confidential. I waited until they ran out of momentum. I asked one question, simple, quiet. Would any of this exist if the review hadn't started? No one jumped in, no one redirected. The silence stretched, thick and awkward. I could almost hear someone typing and then stopping. They tried again, this time softer. About mutual benefit. About moving on, about how much I had contributed over the years. I told them I appreciated the acknowledgement. I told them the apology mattered. I told them I wasn't coming back. A voice on the line tightened. Someone asked if I was sure. Another reminded me that opportunities like this don't come around often. I said I was sure. I closed my inbox while new messages kept stacking. Subject lines blurring together. Urgent, time-sensitive, please advise. The call ended without ceremony. No pressure, no threats, just the sound of a door closing that they hadn't expected to hear. I sat there for a moment longer, letting the quiet hold. The role they were offering back no longer fit. Not because it was smaller, because I had already stepped out of it. When I stood up, nothing dramatic happened. The room didn't change, the phone didn't ring again. The choice stayed where I put it, solid and unmoved, even as everything else kept trying to rearrange itself around me. Who pays the price when no one steps in to save a broken system? The announcement came through the same quiet channels everything else had. No speeches, no dramatic email blast. The CEO was permanently removed, access revoked, authority reassigned. The board moved fast once the paperwork stopped protecting anyone. The company was fined and placed under monitoring, not a slap on the wrist. Enough to sting, enough to change how every future decision would be made. Meetings started ending with lawyers in the room, calendars filled with deadlines that no one dared ignore. My name never showed up again, not on a transition plan, not on a consulting agreement, not buried in a footnote where they could pretend I was still part of the fix. They asked once more, quietly, through an intermediary I didn't recognize. The answers stayed the same. I didn't consult. I didn't explain. I didn't offer a roadmap back to safety. A new offer arrived from a smaller firm across town. Clean operations, slower pace, fewer shortcuts. It sat unopened on my desk for 2 days. Not because I didn't want it, because I needed to sit with the space first. The absence of being the person everyone leaned on when something went wrong. Rain tapped against the window that afternoon, steady, uninterested in outcomes. I watched it for a while and let the quiet feel uncomfortable. I thought about the meeting, the word obstacle. The phones raised, the expectation that I would smooth everything over like I always had. I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud before. I wasn't fired because I failed. I was fired because I wouldn't lie. And when the moment came to step back in and save them from the consequences of that choice, I refused to become useful in the same way again. Here's the life lesson I'm taking with me: being needed can feel like power, but it's often just a habit other people build at your expense. Real strength is knowing when to stop fixing what you never broke, even if walking away leaves your hands empty for a while. The rain kept tapping. The offer stayed where it was, and for the first time in a long time, nothing was asking me to clean it up.